Thank you so much for being here again with us with another amazing film. It's a real honor to have you here.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you for having me here. So, salam خدمت ایرانی های عزیز. Hello to non-Persian speaking people here. Uh, this is actually the second time that I'm here. First time it was like 6 years ago.
It was
Sometimes.
2013, yeah, 6 years ago.
Yeah, like six
Snow on the
years ago.
Pines.
Yeah, I was privileged and very lucky to be here with my first feature film, and this is the second time that I'm here with my second feature film. Feels great, and thank you for having me.
Oh,
Yeah.
of course. Going back to Snow on the Pines, that was a film that it was a very intimate film. Few characters, all take place in like a one house, one setting, sort of a chamber piece. Really, this was a much bigger canvas, a much bigger scale. I mean, more characters, more sets, special effects. A lot of stuff going on in this film. Was this a story? I mean, basically asking you how you came to this story, and did you start out with it? I mean, was there a strategy here? Start out with the smaller film, get some confidence as a director, your first film, and then second film tackle something bigger?
It wasn't like that. It wasn't planned actually, but I'm happy that it happened like that. Because I wanted to make this film like 10 years ago, like 5 years before I did my first feature film. I had this story in my mind, and I, was keeping this story in my mind since just like I can tell you like 10 years ago. I couldn't get rid of it. I tried sometimes, and I sent this story, the treatment, to some film festivals around the world, and I was again lucky that I received, the awards for best treatments from some of these film festivals, and they're how it is. They're giving you the grants to make it, and you cannot get rid of not making it, so you have to make it, like that. So it happened just like that, and I wanted to make it just like this, like a big production movie compared to Iranian scales. And I was very again lucky that I had a great team with me. You cannot make a big production movie without big helps from your DOP, like your yeah, custom designer, your set designers, and like that. And I had them all beside me. Yeah, they helped a lot. Great of deal. Yeah.
One of my favorite scenes in the film comes towards the end. It's when they put the motorcycle helmets on, and she says, "This is to protect them from the shrapnel, but they're also going to have this very intimate conversation. They're finally going to talk, and they need to protect themselves. You still feel their defensiveness. So the helmets become this beautiful way of this metaphor for self protection, and it's also that moment where the backdrop of the war and this personal story really it just resonates really well. So, I mean, that's an image I could see not wanting to let go of if it was in your head 10 years ago. But which did come first, the love story and the war? I mean, did it? I mean, the people and the backdrop. How did that all come together? The themes that you're working with here.
Yeah, no, Paul. The helmet scene, I have to admit and confess that it wasn't my idea at the beginning. Yeah, I was very close to, like the final drafts of my rewriting, and then a friend of mine, which is a very great set designer, he came to me and said this story, which was a real story. He said I entered the room and it was like two people, a husband and wife, because they couldn't go downstairs. They didn't have a safe, asylum like that, and they were sitting there with these helmets in the darkness, and it was like Mauritian people. It was just like space, and it was like funny. And he passed out when he entered the room and saw them. And I said, you know what? You gave me the poster of the film right now. I'm going to put this as the poster of my film, and I'm definitely I will use it in the film. About your next question, I have to say yes. It began like the plot. The main idea was a young boy during those periods of the like bombardments and like that, goes down to the basement and falls in love with a girl there. And each night he is praying for the enemy to come to attack and drop bombs, to go down to the basement and to see his beloved. Then he realized in some point that these wishes these things is causing something like those damages, and he feels bad about himself, and he thinks when you're in that age, you think that that was your wish, that people has, being dead and like that, and that's why something like that happened. So it became like that. Then the idea of the mature, the adult couple came along, and you know what? The great thing for me was when a couple, the marriage, uh, when they fight with each other, there's nothing serious, happening between them. Because when you fight for something, you feel there is something there that you can fight for, and you can, heal it. You can, save it. But when you don't fight over something, and it's a coldness in a relationship, that's where it's just like it's a dangerous relationship. That's the dead end. So in this relationship, that was what I had in my mind, and you need a miracle to save this relationship. To me, this miracle was just like somebody says, if they drop bombs, and it happened. And the main goal was, even the hardest relationships, which seems that there's no heal, there's no way to be saved, will be saved if we talk with each other. That is what we don't do these days, even not between people, between countries. If they talk with each other, if they communicate with each other, if you make and prepare the situation for them to talk with each other, maybe lots of problems will be solved. And in darkness, thank you. And in and people, when you put people in darkness and silent, like this situation, they must start. They must talk. When people are in darkness and it's silence, they will speak, and that's why we chose to do this movie in that period of time. Yeah.
Well, there's also that urgency that when you're sitting quietly and not talking, you don't realize just when the line is crossed that it's too late to talk, and so that there is this sense of urgency, not because of the war. Everyone, no one knows who's going to live 2 minutes from now, so we should really resolve this beforehand. But there is that stubbornness that some people, myself included, have. Like, I'm not, there's a really interesting wish fulfillment or kind of avoidance going on in the principal of the school, your character, what's really interesting is the boy is just getting to understand or experience love, and to try and figure out what those emotions mean for him and the lessons of it. But the older character is still trying to figure it out himself, which I think is so, like, the parallel between the two. That shot you have of them, he's up on the one window, up on the third floor, he's down here. That parallel between the two, and just that feeling that, God, we're still, doesn't matter how old you are, you still have to try and figure it out, or something from the outside has to force you into that. I wanted to go back to the question of your collaborator, set designer, cinematographer, first because that opening shot is so amazing. It's one long take down this extraordinary set, and it really sort of sets the tone for what's to come. There's a little bit of nostalgia there. There's this, I mean, to me, it's this wonderful cinematic shot that really announces that we're going to be experiencing someone who, loves cinema, knows cinema, and this is going to be a great experience. But technically, I mean, it's so interesting. So much of Iranian cinema, contemporary Iranian cinema, it's like realist. It's on the street. It's out on location. And you, in Snow in the Pines, but here too, very much working in sound stages. And this shot was extraordinary for that soundstage work. What do you like about working on the sound stages? Do you feel that sets your sort of voice or your sort of style apart from, maybe what's Iranian cinema is known for these days?
Actually, about that set designing, I have to say this. This is very important for people who lives in Iran or travel back and forth to Iran. They know what I'm saying. Today, Tehran, or some of the cities in Iran, doesn't have even 1 inch similarity with what was like 30 years ago in that city. You cannot find just like 2 meters the same thing. Everything has been changed. To me, I say unfortunately, because we don't have the same city that we had like 30 years ago. So you have to make every single thing which you showed in the film. This means every single person who passed in front of the camera was costumed, was made up, the hair, just like the beard, the customs and everything. All the shops, all the cars and everything like that. So it was a hard job. But the hardest job is not that, because when I have like Mohsen Shah Ibrahimi, the set designer, which is a great human being and very talented person, the first I say, yes, I know that we have 6,000 photos from that moment, and we will make every details from that, every single details, every writings, every streets, every windows, everything exactly the same thing, just like a document thing, to remain someday, like someday if somebody wants to go back and see what was happening back there, they can have this document as like Mohsen Shah Ibrahim is a signature for these things. But the thing is, I want to ask you, Mohsen Shah Ibrahim, one thing, that we will set everything very precise and very realistic, but I don't want people to say, oh my God, that window, oh my God, that street, oh my God, that car. This is not the thing that the reason that we are making this film. We are making this film to tell a story. So we only have like 4 or 5 minutes all the time in the beginning of the movie to show people and to throw these people into our world. If it's a Western movie you're watching, you will believe that it's just like hundreds of years ago. If it's a period movie like this film, you have like 3 or 4 minutes to put the people in this era, in that period of time, and leave them in there. After that, they have to follow the story. So yeah, it was a hard thing to do, but it was very amazing because we made lots of things. For example, those notebooks or books, the schools, all those bags, they're not existing anymore. We made everything, and it was a very beautiful thing, and it is still is there because the Museum of Art, they wanted us to give those things to them. Yeah, and it's there.
The film feels really like richly textured. I mean, you mentioned the notebooks of being, but the school feels very lived in. It feels
Yeah.
like the walls of the school, the apartment building. I mean, yeah, the detail is there. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, I was blessed to have this beautiful, crew with me, and we enjoyed it very much, very, very much. We enjoyed this making this film.
I just have a few more questions, and then we'll turn it over to the audience. We don't have an interpreter tonight, so feel free to ask questions in Farsi or English, and Mr. Mahdi will answer them
Definitely,
as he
my
feels like
Farsi
to.
is better than my English.
And my Farsi
Please
is
ask.
non-existent.
Yeah. Let's say something that Paul doesn't understand.
Yes.
As we Iranians do always in the parties,
So that wouldn't be the first Q&A that's happened.
When we have a foreigner between us, we all speak Farsi. And when we want not to feel bad and guilty, we say it's not important thing. Don't worry about it. It's always important.
I can also just go. It's fine. No, it's okay. So a couple of questions. First, I wanted to ask you again about working with Layla Hatimi. You obviously the big film is The Separation. You work with her as an actor on a number of different films. You guys have worked together as actors and performers. What was it like when you? What was your response when you approached her to be her director this time? Did she have any questions for you? And what was it like directing someone who you'd been acting with for so
Yeah,
long?
I know Layla very good. She's a very good friend of mine. And she is a hard person to work with, which I like that very much. Good actors and good actresses. They have lots of questions. They are very hard picking the projects. I'm very happy that none of my friends like Layla or the others, never I expect them to come along with me to do a movie because of the friendship between us. I have to have something promising for them to do this. Layla knows it better than me. After separation, after the success of separation, we had lots of offers doing movies together, and we were hesitating to do so. So because we didn't want to, do something like together again, like that as a couple. But this one, we thought that it's us again. And once it was funny that once somebody asked me about the arc of this character, for example, what happens to Layla from the beginning to the end, or what happens to that kid, as you just mentioned, from the beginning to the end, what will he study, what, when, the journey that this character goes. And he said, what was your arc? What was your journey? What in that scene? What were you thinking of? And I was saying, to be honest with you, in that scene, I was thinking how to direct the next scene, and that's why you think that I'm playing very good in that scene. But no, I was concerned about the next scene. So that was an easy part for me to do that. But Layla helps me very much. She helped me very much. She, even in some scenes which she is not in the scene, she was coming to the scene, and she was, seeing what's happening in the scene. She was calling me just like every now and then. I say, what I think about this scene, about that little kid in the basement. What if she do that? What if she's very much attached to the project, and you like to work with people like that. Every single person, like actors and DOPs and all the other people, if each of them add just like this much value to the film, you will have a better film, at the end. And Layla is one of those people. I'm very happy to work with her like that.
Another person I think you worked with in the film, who I only recognized on screen because I met her earlier tonight, was your daughter is in this film. Yes, she
daughter,
plays the.
and she's there.
She's
yeah.
right over there.
Yeah.
Yes,
Stand up. Yeah.
the fantastic.
Yeah, my
Yes.
daughter, she was and is in every movie that I make. She appears in the. We did like some theaters, some plays. We did Waiting for Godot by Samuel Beckett in Iran in front of 700 people, and she was playing very good, very great. Yeah.
Excellent,
I'm so
excellent
proud of her.
performance.
Yeah, she's a great artist. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. Well, one more person, and I'll turn it over to Eleni Karandrau, the composer for the film. The music in this film, the opening shot draws us into this world, and the music is a big part of that throughout the film. She was also composer for Teo Angelopoulos, the Greek filmmaker whose films were very focused on like memory and history and the sort of like ideological conflicts of the 20th century. How did you come to find her, and how did she come onto the project?
To make it short, I just like to say this, that it's a very weird and beautiful story. Having Eleni with me in the film. Eleni Karendro, for me as a film lover, was always the best music composer in the world. Always. Since I was just like a teenager, I was watching Theo Angelopoulos movies, and I was like in love with those kind of movies. And you cannot see Angelopoulos movies without hearing, Eleni Karendro's composing, music. So when I was writing this, the final year of rewriting and revising this screenplay and getting close to making it, I was only listening to Eleni Karendro's music in my car, in my office, and like that. Then when I finished this filming and editing and everything, I was, very accidentally, they invited me to become a member of jury in Thessaloniki Film Festival in Greece. I went there, and suddenly I encountered a person who was a friend of Eleni Karendro, and she just said, I'm very close friend with her. And I said, you know what, I made a film, and I want her to see this film. And I knew that Eleni is not working like almost a decade, because after the death of Angelopoulos, which was very tragic, he died in the movie set. During making a film, it was a car accident, a crash, and it was very, very sad. So he passed away, and Eleni decided not to work after that at all. So all the offers in the world, he was refusing it. So she asked, how come this person, this Iranian friend of yours, wants me to watch this film? And I said, just tell her, because when I wanted to get in the mood for writing this film, I was listening to your music, and that's all. And she said, that's the biggest reason that I can watch this film and see. She saw the movie, and something weird happened, because today she loves my film more than myself, me myself. Yeah. And I still don't know why, but she still calls me and say, I saw it again, and she cries on the phone. And yeah. And she said, you know what, I'm going to make this music for you. And I said, "Can I ask you the price?" And say, "No, because you cannot afford me. Yeah, you don't have. I will make this music for you for free because I love your film. I love, yeah, I love your film, and you made me come back after Angelopoulos. This was the movie that encouraged me to come back to the movie because it's about humanity, it's about love, it's about all these things and like that." So she made this, music. She's now ECM, the very incredible prestigious company, music company, released the CD. It's becoming the album of the year, and she is traveling all around the world with this Bomb Love Story concert, and I'm very happy. And I'm receiving lots of emails and lots of letters from all the people around the world saying thank you for bringing Eleni Karendra back to the world of cinema and music. And
It's a beautiful score.
it doesn't
It
have
really
anything
is.
to do with me. The reason that I'm saying I'm very thankful of Eleni herself.
So let's turn it over to the audience. We're going to have mics on either side, so just raise your hand and I'll call on you and we'll bring a mic to you. So let's go right down here in the front row. I want to make our work studies run. We'll bring a mic over to you.
سلام.
سلام.
ببخشید سوالم فارسی میپرسم ازتون. اولا که مرسی، من انقدر احساساتی ام بعد از دیدن این فیلم که همه گوشای ناخونم هم کندم به خاطر یادآوری خیلی چیزا برای احتمالا نسل ما. دو تا سوال داشتم ازتون. یکی این که چقدر تحت تاثیر فیلم مالنا بودین وقتی این فیلم رو ساختین یا مینوشتین؟ چون تو اون فیلم هم دقیقاً دو تا داستان به موازات هم میومد، یعنی شروع میشد. یکی داستان دنیای بچهه و بچگیش و عشقش و یکی دیگه اتفاقی که جنگ توی جامعه رخ داده بود و اون خانوم. سوال دومم اینه که شما تو فیلم قبلیتونم یه رابطه شکست خورده بین یک زوج رو ترسیم کرده بودین که دقیقا همین سردیه و سکوته توی اون فیلم بود و یه رابطه جدیدی اومد و اون عشق رو دوباره توی اون فیلم آورد و ما حس کردیم اون عشق رو. توی این فیلم هم دوباره این کارو کردین و خیلی سافت به قول معروف و میخوام بدونم که این دغدغه شماست، پرداختن به رابطه بین دو نفر، دو تا آدمی که رابطه عاشقانه نمیتونم بهش بگم، شاید انسانی.
The first question was about if I was inspired by watching Malena by Giuseppe Tornatore. No, I wasn't. I love that film. I was inspired by many other films, but not Malena for this specific film. I mean, I was when watching Malena gives me lots of other impressions. As a young boy, I had lots of other things watching. Loving Malena, but not and it didn't have anything specially do with this movie. About your second question is yes, I didn't plan this, but you're right. That's a very good thing because once somebody else, a critic, in Switzerland, they told me that it seems that you have this passion about the relationships, broken relationships, and the miracle that you need in it. And I realized, yes, I'm thinking of these kind of things just like for last couple of years. My next film will not be something like that. It's a totally different thing. But I would love to be a person who consider myself self as somebody who concerns about the relationships and not between men and women, about commitments, about things like that. You know what? To me, love is a very important thing. Today we don't have much love in movies like the years before, like the years that we were watching like Gone with the Wind or Casablanca or Billy Wilder movies and like that. So it doesn't have anything to do about there's no love in lives today. Maybe back then it wasn't like that, like what we were watching in the movies, that much love like that too. But What I believe is, let's make a fantasy and an ideal world with love, at least in the movies. That's where we can find love. If we cannot find it in the real love, if there are lots of hatreds, if there are a lot of despise, if there are a lot of enemies and threatenings and bombs and wars and like that, to me, I don't take just like filmmaking very seriously. To me, filmmaking and films are only, not only the most important thing about filmmaking is bring people out of their home for 2 hours and detach these people from their daily disasters and problems and hardnesses and like things like that. So why we cannot, why not we give them more love and fantasies and like that. So I'm very happy that I did it in those two films, and I will do something else like that, which I just can't find it in movie and cinema, and that's why I became in this industry. Like that.
Another question. Let's go right here. Gentleman in the, I think, blue shirt right here.
سلام پیمان جان، خیلی ممنون به خاطر فیلم. I try ask English. We know you came to the cinema industry with script writing, and you're a professional script writer. So at the end of the movie, I'm interested. So you have a 3 or 4 script writing advisor. Dr. Nagma Samini, Amir Reza Koestani, and two other one I forget. I want to know why you invite and make this group, and are you believe to group working together, and how these people helped you for making this script? Because 2 of them, Amir Reza Koestani and Nagma Samini, came from theater, and they're famous for PS writing. Thank you.
Actually, I believe in. I think there's only one scriptwriter, and the screenwriter is only one person. But I myself do believe in consulting with other people's, especially with another woman, always. Since it's a relation between a man and woman, I always consult with a woman, always. And I ask her to take her side for not letting me to fall in this, to a pitfall, just like being very, taking the man's side or like that. So whatever I make, I discuss with lots of people. I believe in this. Somebody said to me like 20 years ago when I started this, don't tell your stories to the people. They will steal it from you and something like that. But today I advise to other people as well that you have to tell your story. You have to share your story before you make it. And each people, by listening to it, they will add something definitely to it. There are some people here where just like some of these advisors for me as well. Those people were professionals like Amir Zakwes and Dr. Samini, and they helped me a lot. But not only those, I can tell you whatever I wrote, and I still am working. I started writing 20 years ago. I don't remember any single day till today that I haven't write. Whatever happened in my life, the worst days of my life, I wrote. Maybe like 2 minutes or 3 minutes. But I write every day. And every day writing, some of these days, it's just like speaking on the phone with some other people. I have lots of friends that I call them and say, let me tell you about this scene. You remember this scene that I told you like a year ago? And he or she says, yes, I said I change it this way. I love to share it, and I cannot make anything without the help of the others. And I'm very honored, and I say it proudly that I always get help from some other people. Yeah.
Let's go over here on the aisle.
We've had the great pleasure of seeing you work with one of the great filmmakers of our time, Asghar Farhadi, who, among other things he does brilliantly, is symbolism. And I was wondering if you could elaborate on the symbolism in this movie with the pomegranate and the onion and any other lessons you may have taken from him in the making of this film.
Didn't get the question. Was it?
Symbolism,
Okay.
pomegranate and onion, and any
Yeah, Yeah, what I like to say, working with Asghar Farhadi gave me more important thing than getting these symbolisms or something like that. If you maybe you're just like correct, I don't want to deny that, but I learned a lot of bigger and more important things by working with Asghar Farhadi. There are lots of more important things as a filmmaker or as a human, and above all those things, as a human you can learn from somebody like Asghar Farhadi. I'm very happy to be a friend with him and still be in touch with him and learn from him and some other filmmakers like Abbas Kiarostami and like some other great filmmakers. About those things, I don't know. Maybe it comes from some place. As a filmmaker, you never understand where it came from. People tell me, for example, I saw something like that in some movie. Maybe I saw that movie. Maybe I got it from Asghar or somebody else. But I like to insist and repeat again, there are lots of more important things you can learn from people like Asghar Farhadi, which makes you a better human, better, filmmaker, and better artist to have, special look to the society around you.
I just want to jump in because I kept thinking about Kiarostami's early documentaries, with the school children. He's spent a lot of time shooting, stories about children in general throughout his career. What was it like for you working with children as a director? There's that amazing scene between you and the boy when you take his test. That's a really raw moment for him. Did you look at any of those Kiarostami films, documentaries? And then how was it working with children for this film?
Let's split it to two questions. One is about Kiarostami. I just like to tell you that whenever I want to do something artistic in my life, I watch Kiarostami's movies. Whatever, it doesn't matter. If I want to make a movie, I detach myself from lots of other things. Like I don't listen to musics, just like randomly musics. I don't watch movies, but I will see like 5, 6 of Abbas Kiarostami movies, and it make me, motivated and more feel like an artist, and to become a more important artist, and it helps me in that way. I still cannot use the past, what do you call it? The past verb, what? Past sentence or verbs about Kiarostami because I don't think that he's with us, and we still whatever we do. If I'm here, people like me are here. Huge part of it is because what Abbas Kiarostami and his generation did for us, and I owe him a lot. I had a beautiful relationship with him, very very beautiful, and I'm trying to do something for him with his son maybe in the future. And that's what I was just saying. Yes, definitely, I learned a lot from Kiarostami, and his view to the world and to the arts, which is very phenomenal. So, about working with the kids, I just want to tell you. First of all, working with kids, the most important thing is to cast a good kid. Casting a good kid is a very difficult thing. I didn't find I had just like 2 weeks to cast all the people in the film, but I didn't find anyone for this kid, for the boy. So it took me like a month and a half to find him. And when I was disappointed of finding him, because I saw all the kids in the schools, in the film schools and like that, then I went myself to the schools and I sat in the schools. I went from this school to that school to that school, and I was observing all these kids, and I was asking them, bring that one, bring that one, bring that one, and like that. And then I was testing them. Then I saw this one and I felt in love with this person, and I just like, he's so smart, is so a very nice kid. His family is very important. Who's the family? Who's the parents? And like that. And yeah, and the key is Farhadi told me, this is what I learned from Asghar in about Ellie, that you must not let these kids know what's happening. You have to lie them sometimes. You have to tell them a different story. So that's what I did some parts with this kid, that I was telling him, false stories, incorrect happenings, that you're going to do this, you're smiling because of this reason, because of that reason. And that's what happens with the kids. Yeah.
Another question. Let's go. We have a gentleman way in the back here. Bring up the mic.
I think it's getting boring, huh? Let's speak Farsi a little bit. Let's gossip.
Well, for his sake, I'll go with English. First of all, congratulations. For those of us who lived during the war, I think you have captured that period of time very vividly. Congratulations on that. I was wondering how old you were and you have actually experienced that yourself. The second question is, how long did it take you to shoot the whole film? And third one is, do you prefer being a director or an actor?
The first question, I know what you're asking because you want to know if I was the same guy who felt in love with that kid. That's always the people who are asking. I was the same age. I was 12 years old. Now I'm 48 years old. So, yes, I was the same age, and I was in a basement like that. I experienced all of those moments, and it still, is in my mind. And but I didn't fall in love with a girl in the basement. I felt in love with a girl outside of the basement. I like that. But yeah, your second question. It took like 50 something days of shooting, like almost 2 months, but with a great preparation, which matters very much. If you have to be very precise on the schedules and like that, I have a very beautiful crew, which I constantly work with. Like 3, 4 movies in a row, I work with them. I don't change that much people in my, in my crew. So, and then for the third question, I cannot tell you. I still am thinking of this. That which one do I consider more as an actor or as a screenwriter or as a director? But uh, I can tell you that I prefer directing, and because directing comes from writing, I direct whatever I write. So it has to be my passion. It has to be something in my heart that I direct. Creating is more, interesting for me to build, a world, to tell a story like that. I was very lucky and privileged to work as an actor in some good movies, too. If it's a movie like A Separation or About Ellie or Abadoye Cruz or maybe a movie like Camp X-Ray like that, I would love to. But other than that, I still am waiting to direct the stories that I have in my mind. Yeah.
We have time for a few more questions, so let's go to right in here in the aisle. Yeah, right here on the aisle. Is there a mic coming over here? Where's the mics? Please.
Directing is a strange thing, still waiting for this gentleman to ask. I was outside now while you were watching the film, because I saw this film before. And I was outside with a friend of mine. I was speaking. Then a friend of mine came to me and said, "Oh my God, there is a woman passing out." Not passing out. He was just like collapsed in the bathroom, and she felt very bad. And I was just like, "Wow!" The people were running with water and like that. And I said, and they said that because she became very emotional with watching this film, and I felt bad because I was happy, and I said, "Yes, I did a great job." So it's a cruel thing. Oh, okay. I went to I went to her, and I realized she's one of my students, and she's a very good actress as well. So sometimes you feel like you like to make people to feel like that, or you feel bad about it, and that's what happened to me just like minutes ago. So
Thank you. First of all, I have to tell you that the music in this film was probably one of the most evocative pieces of music I ever heard in a Persian language film. Secondly, my question was, what were your political challenges in making of this film, in terms of content?
yeah, political challenges. Whatever you do in countries like Iran and Middle East and countries like that, even if it's not a political movie, they consider it as a political issue. There's a very brilliant poet, the Polish poet Szymborska. I bet you know her. She's a brilliant poet. She has a beautiful poem that she says, whatever you don't do political, they consider it as a political because you're not doing it political. So my political view doesn't really matter here in this film because I was trying to say something more about human, and human all around the world is a human. I travel a lot with lots of my film around the world, and I realized that at the end, what matter is love, humanity, and these things doesn't matter what's the my. I don't like political movies myself, even to watch them, let alone to participate in making them. So what I just like to mention about what you asked is, when I was a small kid, I remember that they were taking us like 7 years old, 8 years old, 7 o'clock in the morning in the queues to say just like down to USA, down to this nation, that to down to the other nation, and to spreading just like hatred and just like everyone is enemies and like that. Today I have a son, 7 years old, and I don't want him to do something like that. And that's the reason that I thought that I like to say it in my movie. I just like to tell you a funny story. Um, Once I was in a friend's house. Then his son came just like he was 7 years old, and he came to the home. I was with this family like 10 years ago, and he said, "Mom, what has Ismail? What did Ismail do?" And his mom said, "Who's Ismail?" I said, "I don't know, Ismail. Every morning we're saying down with Ismail, down with Ismail." And he was just like saying instead of down with Israel, he was saying that because in Iran we say Israel Ismail. And he didn't even know after a year saying it, he didn't even know what he's saying. So that's funny, that's the thing which is funny. If I say something like that in a movie, you will consider it definitely as a political issue, which is not. It's just like something, let's get rid of this political issue. Let's stay more close to human issues and something like that. By the way, I like to say that there are like, when I see in this crowd, there are like some actresses and beautiful actresses and actors which I enjoy very much from watching them. Just like here, there are Nikar and Melika Furutan and Nikar Zai, which I love to say that I would love to work with you guys one day in the future, definitely, and I will. And Armin Miladi too, yeah. Armin Miladi too. Yeah, I would love to say. You don't know how does it look from here to watch you guys from here. Yeah.
All right, so we have one more question, and we'll go. Let's go over here.
Of course, the one and only Susan Dehim is over there too, the beautiful singer, Susan Dehim.
I had a quick question from a non-Iranian sensibility, but there are lots of things that were the same pitch as Marjan Satrapi's Persepolis. The school, the bombings, there's an atmosphere of self-referentiality, of autobiography that I would like to see if could be described by you.
I saw that beautiful film from Marjan. I'm not sure if I got your question, but I just love to say that each of us, like me and Marjan, this generation, we experienced those days ourselves. So when you're like 20 years old, you're not a filmmaker. You don't think of making it. You just think about it. When you're like 25 years old or above, like that, you start to think of telling this story. Then when you become a filmmaker, like Marjan and I, we become just like, for example, now like 40 something years old, and you tell the story just like in the same time, maybe like that. What I like to say is, doesn't matter what we make. There's a beautiful saying about movie making and films, which I do believe very much. I like to say it right now. They say whatever we as a filmmaker make is just like 50% of the film. The next 50% will be made by the audience. So that's the reason whatever you saw today is totally different with the film that the gentleman beside you has seen. You make it in your mind with your experience, upon your nostalgias, upon your experiences. You may sometimes some very small item may remind you as a very tragic and very suffering thing, and that may makes you to dislike this film. You come out and say, you know what, I hate this film, because you had an experience which the gentleman beside you didn't have it. So what we do is we make the film, we put it in front of you, and you will make the rest in your own mind. That's what me and Marjan and lots of other people has done.
Well, I hope we can have you back when your next film is completed, or just come back anytime. Really, this has been fantastic. We'll love to have you anytime. So, thank you very much for being here, and thank you for joining us as well.